Welcome everyone to the EL Civics Network meeting for California. I'm Lori Howard, CASAS Program Specialist Coordinator. I'm here today with Portia LaFerla, Program Specialist, CASAS Program Specialist, and we have two guests from CASAS too I'll tell you about in a moment. If you haven't already, please type your name and agency into the chat box. And if you haven't already, after the meeting, please register at caadultedtraining.org. And remember, if you're not receiving a meeting reminder, email me your email address at my email address, lbhoward@casas.org. Please don't put it in the chat. Well, Happy New Year. Glad to have you here with us today. It's raining where I am. I don't know what's going on with you, but I hope you're all safe and dry, at least indoors. So let's go to our agenda today. And as I said, we've got two guests from CASAS to talk about the CASAS new test series. And they're going to give us an overview. And then we'll move to our information about civic participation and IELCE. Then Portia will talk about citizenship preparation. And I have a little bit of other information to give to you today. Does anybody have any other agenda item they'd like to add? Hopefully I can keep track of the chat. Okay. And I hope I haven't looked to see if our guests are here, but I'm going to hope they are, and I'll just go to introduce them. Again, talking about the new test series overview, Karen Berger, who's the National Program and Field Studies Specialist, and I've given you her email address here, and Astrid Robitaille, National Program and Online Training Specialist. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and give them the feed.
Yes, I need permission.
Yes, let me stop sharing, and you need permission also.
Oh, now it's going to let me, I think. So
Okay,
we should
good.
be in good shape.
Wonderful.
I want to make sure I share the right screen. And let's get this here. So thank you for that lovely introduction. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Berger, National Program and Field Studies Specialist. So glad you could all be here today. We've got a good crowd. So first of all, just looking at the new series, this doesn't seem to be the right. So anyway, the steps and goals 2 have some new features. And Astrid, do I have the correct PowerPoint? Because this doesn't look right to me.
Yeah, hang on. Let me just open it on my end and.
Sorry, everybody.
Bye.
It just doesn't look right.
Doesn't look right to you?
I didn't think this was the first slide, but it could be.
It's slide number 2 after our title slide. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so
yeah.
Big overview. So one of the biggest differences between the STEP series and the previous series, the life and work and the reading and listening, is that we have 5 test levels. As you know, in the listening, there were only 3 test levels, and in the life work reading, there were 4 test levels. So the more levels means, although there aren't more total questions, there are more questions focused in at each level, and that way we get better placement for the students. There are new reports that come along with this new series, and also the STEP series are aligned with the English language proficiency standards, which were developed in 2016. So we have a much more updated series for you. So for those who don't know, STEPS is an acronym, and it stands for Student Test of English Progress and Success. So these are the currently approved NRS tests. As you can see, Reading STEPS is ready for use now. It is approved through 2030, and California has placed it on their assessment policy. So you can use Reading STEPS and Listening STEPS in your program now. It is good to remember that pre and post tests must be in the same series. So if you start someone with life and work, you must post test them in life and work before you move them over to the new series. So these tests also are approved, the life and work reading and listening, but as you can see, that approval runs out in June 30th, 2024. And something to consider, because I know in California, a lot of people proxy forward their test scores. So you don't want to proxy forward life and work test scores, because you will not be able to use those for reporting in the program, new program year starting July 1. And also just wanted you to know that the Math Goals 2 is also ready for use with the same new updates and extra levels. So that is available for your use. I know it's probably not used much in ESL, but it is part of our new series that have been approved. The breakdown of the levels here is really a nice feature of it. Like I said, there aren't more test questions, but there are more questions at each level. And so these tests each cover 2 NRS levels, and those levels overlap. So as you can see at level A, you have NRS levels 1 and 2. When you go to level B, you have NRS levels 2 and 3, and so on up the line. Again, more questions at each level and a better opportunity to really hone in on what the student's skill, mastery, and their deficiencies are. I'm not going to go into depth over here, but this is just to give you an idea of the overall test levels, their form numbers, the number of items on these forms, and the amount of time to be allowed for them. As you know, these correlate to the English language proficiency standards. This is a hot link, so you can go right to that publication. If you're not familiar with their standards, it's a good time to begin to get familiar, because instruction is changing based on these standards. So this is where we want to really hone in on and make sure that we are well preparing our students, not just to get a level gain, but better prepared to be moving up the continuum in ESL and hopefully eventually to ABE. Also, there's a hot link to the CASAS competencies. And this is now for the listening steps. Again, the specifics, the amount of time, the scale score rangers, and all. So some of the frequently asked questions that we get, and I can't emphasize this enough. What if I pre-tested on life and work reading? Can I post-test with reading steps? No, you absolutely cannot. You cannot get paired test scores between 2 series. You must always pre and post within the same series, and to be able to report those MSGs, measurable skill gains. So remember, like I said, if you have students that pre-tested on life and work, you want to try and get that gain with life and work and before you transition to steps. For those who are unfamiliar, we had questions about this, that's why it's here. An asterisk score means that the student scored at the inaccurate range. In some reports, you'll see it as just a hyphen. You will not see a scale score next to that. And when a student has an asterisk score, you must retest them. This cannot be reported. There's no scale score, and so you should retest them in the next lower test form. But what if they get an asterisk on level A? You know, how do you go lower than that? Well, our recommendation is that you would place them in a low-level class for up to 12 hours of instruction and then retest them. They may need you might be able to have a literacy organization or perhaps a tutor that could help them. One thing that we want people to know is that with level A reading, these test booklets can be used as a consumable in the STEP series. So it may be a little extra work for you. I know people are concerned because 27 and 28 are not part of this series. So these low-level learners can use the level A reading book and write right on that. And then you can transfer those answers into TOTS Pro Enterprise. Then with the diamond scores, I know that California has special requirements regarding these conservative estimate scores. So we do not require retesting at a higher level. And the score is NRS reportable. On a pretest, it's very important that you would retest, because if they got a diamond score, that means they out-tested the test. They tested so high that it's a good chance that the test did not even capture all the student can do. So when it came time for a post-test, they may not show a level gain because you didn't have a good baseline for starting. So, and then again, I know California has specific regulations, so you're going to want to talk to your program specialist and your CDE consultant to determine what is your best plan for dealing with students who have a diamond score. Even if it's on a posted test, they can be retested. And obviously, if they get that MSG with a diamond score, that's fine. But again, I know there's certain percentages, certain ranges that California likes to see in programs with those diamond scores. So looking a little bit more, I know this is, people are not happy about the forms 27 and 28 because we do have students come in to our classes that have no transferable skills from their country. So they are not just deficient in English literacy, but in literacy in general. And these were a good opportunity. So again, the STEPS Level A test may be administered as a consumable paper test, and they can circle answers in the test booklet. And a touchscreen device is another suggestion that could be used for low-level learners on e-tests. We have updated the intake screening process, and this is just the flow chart that's part of that intake screening process. So the document is posted on the website, and this is for STEPS. So there used to be 3 different options over here on the right-hand side because of the form 27 and 28. But at this point now, there are 2 options. And again, we suggest a touchscreen device for low-level learners on e-tests, or another option being that they could use the Level A test as a consumable paper test. So again, it's a good idea to download the new intake screening guidelines for STEPS. We recommend that you do have a good intake screening process so that you can properly place your students and don't overwhelm them with testing when they're not ready for that yet. And now I'll turn it over to Astrid. Oops, I guess I have one more slide here that just shows the levels and forms again and the scale scores for these STEPS series. We'll pop this into the chat when we're done here. So if you'd like a copy of this PowerPoint to review at your leisure, as you can see, there are 5 levels that overlap, covering the full range of NRS levels. And it does give students more opportunity to make an MSG because of the way these forms are leveled. And now, again, I don't know why that slide's in there. So there are some strengths of this new series: fewer test questions, 33 to 39, but more at the level where the students are. We find that because they cover fewer performance levels, we have greater accuracy and less inaccurate scoring, which results in less retesting. Now I will turn it over to Astrid, and she'll talk to you about the sample test items and the blueprints.
Thanks, Karen, and thank you all for having Karen and I today. I just want to go over with you a few of the sample test items so you get a little bit of a flavor. All the information you're going to see on the next few slides I put together from documents that are available on the CASAS website for downloads. They're the blueprints and the sample test items. And as Karen has mentioned, they are aligned with the English language proficiency standards, and I have them linked here again on that slide. Okay, so here's just a sample, and kind of what I did here was took parts of the blueprint that we have available as a downloadable PDF and the standard for that level from the English language proficiency standards, and broke them up so you have a little bit of a Cliff Notes version, if you will. So we can see this is a level A, Reading Steps Content Standard Blueprint. And as you can see, it covers ELP standards 8 and 1. That's that center column of the grid. And it's NRS functioning levels 1 and 2. That's why that stair step graph was in there again, just to refresh your memory before we went into this, because level A does cover levels 1 and 2. And so I pulled these out of the ELP standards. So at ELP standard 8 says an English language learner can determine the meaning of words and phrases in oral presentations and literary and informational text. That's ELP standard 8. Again, if you haven't taken a look at that, the full ELP standards, it's a pretty weighty, large multi-page PDF. So I pulled out the relevant bits and put them on the slide. And at level 1, which is where we are with reading steps level A, you can see that's the descriptor there, relying heavily on context, questioning, and knowledge of morphology in their native language, recognize the meaning of a few frequently occurring words. And you can see how this builds up through depth of knowledge as we go along. And then there's the pie chart too. So you can see that the bulk of level A is high frequency vocabulary words in pictures. So remember, level A was ELP standard 8 and 1. So here's 1. English language learner can construct meaning from oral presentations. Again, it's the same pie chart, but ELP standard 1 level 1 says use a very limited set of strategies to identify a few keywords and phrases in oral communications. So that's ELP standard 1. Again, same pie chart, but these are just the extracted bits of the ELP standards. Okay, and a sample item for NRS level 1, again, largely in pictures. So here's a picture, a sample item of socks. You can see that this deals with ELP standard 8. CASAS competencies, don't forget that. It's CASAS competency 1.2. It's a task area 4, a picture. And that key right there tells you the answer. So the answer is, in fact, D, socks. Here's another sample item. And I put this one in as well, because this is something that is often tricky. We write dates here in the United States different than many other countries. So I thought it was important to include this one. Again, it's ELP standard 8, task area 3, and the answer to this, as we all know, is A, and it deals with numbers formatting. So those are just a couple of sample test items for level A. Jumping ahead to level C, level C, you can see, just glance at the pie chart, and you can see that details make up the bulk of level C reading steps assessment. And again, ELP standard 8 and 1, NRS levels 3 and 4, and at levels 2 and 3 for both ELP standard 8 and standard 1. So here we have ELP standard 8, and I just want to kind of draw your attention to the increase in depth of knowledge between level 2 and level 3. So if we look at this one, level 2, it's using context questioning, determine the meaning of frequently occurring words in written texts about familiar topics, experiences, and events. And then if we look at level 3, it's determine the meaning of, for instance, general academic and content-specific words. So you can see how that depth of knowledge does increase from level 2 to level 3, and that's all encompassed in level C. And here's level 1. For ELP standard 1 for level C, that again, the increase in rigor from level 2 to level 3, you can see it's the same pie chart. But it's important here to look also at the percentage of test items. So if we look at the last column, or the far right column in that chart, you can see that 58%, with aligned with the pie chart, are retelling key details. So that's really the focus of level C. And some sample test items for C. Here's an advertisement for, or like what you would see as a flyer for a shuttle bus service. And the question is, what is this sign about? All of them, just as a surface glance, could be plausible. There's a car, there's the word park. It could be about finding parking spaces, but they really need to focus in on those details to determine that the correct answer is in fact D. CASAS competency 2.2, we don't want to forget about the CASAS competencies. They're important as well. And this is dealing with ELP standard 1, identifying the main topic. And listening steps. Again, 5 levels for listening now. So this is level A. Again, looking a glance at the pie chart tells you that half of the assessment is vocabulary, covering ELP standards 1 and 2. ELP standard 1, I had a little bit of a shuffle with the real estate here. So the peach is the standard, and then the blue box is below it is level 1 of standard 1. So English language learner can construct meaning from oral presentations and literary informational texts through level appropriate listening, reading, and viewing. And then level 1 at ELP standard 1 is identify a few key words and phrases. And if you see, it begins with use a very limited set of strategies too. And you will see as we look at some more levels and sample test items, you can see that that increases. You look at the next slide, Karen.
Oh, we didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So here's a sample test item for listening level A. This is, it's pictures and the audio transcript I've just written here. It says umbrella, and the student would choose ELP standard 1, CASAS competency 1.4. On the website, it's important to note, you can download audio files of all of these sample test items. So that's really helpful. They're downloadable in a zip file, and then the zip file opens and you can see all the different listening sample test items audio files. So that might be something you'd want to take a look at. Okay, here's listening at level D, and you see with our quick glance at the pie chart, we see 41% is dialogue. So that's a good chunk. And again, ELP standards 1 and 2, except at levels 3 and 4. So if we look at level 3, answer questions about key details, and that's level 3. And if we go down to level 4, it's analyze the development of the themes and ideas and cite specific details and evidence from text to support the analysis. So you can see again there the progression of rigor. And that's NRS levels 4 and 5. At ELP standard 2, can participate in level appropriate oral and written exchanges. And if we look at level 3, express his or her own ideas, ask and answer relevant questions. Express his or her own ideas is also present in level 4, but it's expanded, clearly supports points with specific and relevant evidence, asks and answers questions to clarify ideas and conclusions. So again, we see that difference in rigor. And that's at level D. And here's a sample test item for level D. The audio transcript says, hello, everyone. This meeting is about ways to improve our business. I think we should give discounts to seniors over 65. Can we afford to do that? Yes. Lower prices will only increase business. And then they're asked to choose the correct answer. CASAS competency, again, 4.8. And the key at the end, the answer to this one is C. And that's ELP standard 2, and that deals with dialogue, which again we saw was the lion's share of the assessment. Okay, so some of the strengths of the new test series, reading and listening. Karen went over a few of these earlier. The reports in TE, as we're going to look at in a minute, are much more simplified. We have individual skills profile, content standards, competence reports, task area reports, test score over, and we're going to look at a few of those here in just a sec. Okay, categories have a minimum number of items. more confidence in the inferences about student performance and successful student intervention. And so we really feel that this is an improvement on our Life and Work series. So thank you to so many of you, I'm sure here maybe post-tested or field tested. And so we do want to be sure that we thank you for that. I know Karen joins me in that. That's her bailiwick. And none of this would have happened without all of you who were field testing. So every chance we get, we like to extend our thanks. So we're hoping that these reports will result in better instructional decisions and less teaching to the test, but more teaching of the relevant material in closing those skill gaps that the students have. So here's a brief look at a couple of new reports. You see that they look very different. We are used to those, very small font, blue lines, reports where we, have to, print it out, and then there's, really kind of study it. Here at a glance, we can tell this was on the left, it's a reading steps level A. And we can see the student did very well in high frequency vocab tests. Also pretty well in pictures and in numbers, but really needs some work on details. To the right is a class report for reading steps level D, and pretty even across the board. This teacher might want to work on inference with the class and identifying some details, and then continue to reinforce that vocabulary and main idea. And you can see this. No, that's okay, Karen. I can show it on the next slide. You can see here's a task area report. Those tasks are, it's so important that our students' experiences with all of the ways that information comes to them in their daily lives. It's not always in, written prose form. So it's important that, they have time to interact with forms and charts and tables and graphs and signs and ads and all the ways they're bombarded with English language text in their daily lives. And you can see on this report here on the left, it's a level D student report, and the student did really well with text, emails, articles, and narratives. That's task area 3 there, and 94% of that was correct. And you see that the N, that column with the N, that's the number of test questions that dealt with, that were presented in the form of text, emails, articles, or narratives. So 16 of that N, that was a large number, and they did quite well. Some of the N's are smaller, only 4 questions, charts, tables, and graphs. So, and the test of the report on the right is a class summary, and again, pretty even across the board. The N is larger because it's all of the class assessments that were given in that, all of the let's see, steps reading level E that were given to that group. So how should we use them? So here's our student. He has to take a test. He's really nervous. We know that that's typical. Jose is welcomed by the teacher. Come with me to the computer lab. We're going to put you on e-test. So e-test goes in. He goes into the computer lab. He has to take a reading steps. So it throws the locator at him first. And here's his results. So puts him in a level C. He takes a level C reading. It's CASAS's recommendation that if we look at, here's a copy of his report, that 70 or below, the classroom teacher might want to provide some reinforcement and some more experiences at that level. So at level C. And you can see that details, 81% correct. So we're going to go up a level. So he's pretty got it going on for details at level C. So let's work on inferences at a higher level, level D. Activities with inferences with him. Main idea, inference, he really could benefit from some more practice work at level C. Again, this is to prepare for that post-test. So we know he's going to take a level C at the end of that instructional period. So really beefing up instruction with main idea and inference would probably result in him bringing those scores up. Okay, here's our teacher. She's reiterating this. She's looking at the report and she's saying, okay, so I'm going to work with Jose on vocabulary, main idea, inferences at NRS 3, but I'm going to start practicing retelling text and retelling key details at NRS level 4. That's to prepare him to move on, because he's, time is so precious, your time and their time, and we want to make the best use of their classroom time, seat time, as we can. Don't forget about the CASAS competencies. Same thing applies. So again, here is the CASAS competency report. Based on this, work on community resources, finding community resources, and interacting with health resources here at his level C, and provide some a little more challenge activities for basic communication, consumer economics, and employment. Okay. All right, so all of this, and this was a very quick walk through this new test series, and we know that you'll excuse us for that, but I know Lori has so much more that she wants to share with you, and we didn't want to take up too much time. But what does this mean for program instruction? This means that it is crucial that teachers get these reports, that they have them. Whoever at your agency prints out the reports, that they get them into the hands of the teachers, teacher portal if you're using that, and make sure they understand how to read the charts and what that means for driving instruction, and where they should align that instruction. Staff meetings, PD sessions, and also, as Karen mentioned at the beginning, familiarity with the ELP standards is super crucial, because the life and work was based on the CASAS competencies, but reading and listening steps are all about the English language proficiency standards, and that's where the alignment really occurs. So we've linked them a couple of times in this presentation, and if you don't have a copy, download it and maybe do some reading through it, just enough to kind of understand and see what that means for your students in your program. And again, all of those documents, the sample test items, the blueprints, all of that is available on the CASAS website for each test. So, when you go onto the CASAS website, if you click on reading steps, you'll have a whole list of PDFs that you can download. And it was from that we pulled the content for this presentation.
Thank you so much, Astrid. Thank you so much, Karen. We've been working for the last 5 years or so with agencies to introduce them to the college and career readiness standards, the English language proficiency standards. We've been talking all along that agencies needed to get ready for these new tests to come out. And now that they're out, we are thrilled. Again, a reading of them again wouldn't be a bad idea. Thank you. And we appreciate you giving us your slides that you linked. You might want to throw them in again there. And I will send that link also. I'd like you to answer a few questions, but before we do that, why don't we have a raise of hands for those of you who are already using the STEPS reading test in your programs? Can you raise your hand? Go over there to reactions and raise your hand so we can see. Okie dokie. We have a few. Okay, and how about STEPS listening? Okay, great. So there are some agencies. So great, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll share with your colleagues about it. And we have a question that came in from Sarah Krajewski at about 1:13. Karen or Astrid, will you be interested in responding to that comment? You see it? It says the level A test is broad.
Sorry, I'm scrolling back.
Okay, 1:13.
Yep.
The level A test is broad and perhaps unreliable for class placement. Just before you get there, just for me to say that, I always suggest that the CASAS test is one measure, and for placement, we should use listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So that would be partial.
So
to that.
So Lori, I
Yeah.
want you to know how hard this is. So we do our screening before we place the students. Okay, so for that, we have like a little written thing. And then if they can't do that, we have a little reading thing and we have a little talking thing. There's a lot of work we're doing before we place them. Then we place them. Then we get, particularly from the A test, we now have a specific, newly written, completely new thing. Anyone who took the A test now must go to this specific place and speak to these specific people who will now do a very long interview, much longer than the ones we do with the other students. So every student's done writing and every student gets an interview. These students get a much longer interview and conceivably a read aloud test. And then when we still don't know what to do, a dictation task. It's extraordinarily time consuming because when we placed with the scores out of the A, then we spent the next 2 weeks rearranging all the students and putting them in different classes. So I really am trying to problem solve, but we're exhausted.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure I understand how your classes are structured. So I do know that it sounds like you may have students who really shouldn't even be taking a test yet. Is that why you're going back through this intake process? Because
No. So these are, we start out, we sort of follow your intake, but we're not doing this one-on-one. We're doing it in groups. Therefore, we have like a writing thing. There's some questions to answer. What's the date? What's your last name? Really simple ones. And a little, why are you here kind of question. And that is what the first screening, that helps us decide who should go to the beginner room and maybe just be assigned the A. Then we give, in that room, we give them a reading screening to see what's going on again. And if they do really well on that, we send them to the locator. But then if they're taking the A, or if the locator assigns the A, that's sort of the biggest problem. Students who we don't think are beginners, who go take the locator then assigns them the A, and then they've taken the A test and they get this weird low score. Then we have to take all of these people with these scores and try to figure out whether they really did deserve to get a 192 or a 194, or whether that was some unusual event that happened because of the way the test is, and sort them out again. So basically, we are doing, as I said, an interview starting with very simple questions and going to more complex questions, and then having them look at their reading screening and then see what they can read aloud to us. And then the final thing we had to add was a dictation task to try to figure out. So these are traditional, normal literacy, low beginning, high beginning students in using, core textbooks. It's just that the CASAS is not predictive at all. It's just a random number. We write it down and then we ignore it from the A. That's not true of students taking B, C, D, E. Those students we confirm with an interview, and we've done a little writing screening just to double check, but we feel pretty confident that when we have a score, we can place them well. It's these A scores that basically the information doesn't mean anything.
So Sarah, thank you so much for your comments. I'm going to ask Karen and Astrid to do a little bit of research about that and get back to you personally so that we can go on with our meeting, but we really appreciate you bringing this up. I have a couple more questions. Just Aaron Brown asked, where can I find samples of the oral screening? Was that clear from your presentation, Karen or Astrid?
No, but I can put a link in the chat and let me go to it myself, and then I will put that link in there for you.
And the last question, I think, are you planning to update the e-test sampler?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we are. And we perfect storm with 3 new series and so many things in development, and there's been, but they are very close. They've been in the final review, so they are very close to being released on the e-test sampler. So you should keep going back and look for those.
Okay, great. Are these reports available for teachers in the teacher portal, or is this accessible only in TE non-teacher portal? That's another question.
The reports?
The reports that Astrid showed.
Yes, the new reports are in the teacher portal, correct?
Okay.
Astrid?
Yes. Yeah, I replied to that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I just popped in the page for the intake screening.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, should
one-
students be taking both the reading and listening for every pre and post test?
That is an agency decision, really. I think that you serve them best by testing them in both. They can only get one MSG per year. And typically you would want to place them wherever they had the lower score. I don't, that's gonna be an agency decision, what's best. What I find, over the years is a lot of times students would top out in the reading, but they really weren't ready to go to ABE. And that all they were taking was the reading test. And then when we put them in a listening test, it's like, oh, they're back in ESL again. So they're, exit criteria for reading is not gonna be the same as exit criteria for listening. And oftentimes students are not at the same level in both modalities. So testing in both modalities would be preferred to best serve the students.
Okay, and last question, are these reports, oh, sorry, I lost it. Are these competent reports for the New Steps test for all levels?
Yes, they're for all levels. We just wanted to give a sampling of them. We do encourage you to go to the CASAS. If you go to the CASAS homepage, on the right-hand side, there are web pages for the STEP series. And there you have all of the documents that have all of the sample test items at all the levels. It has the GLEs, which is really nice because we have grade level equivalencies for the aligned with these tests. And there's other support materials, the blueprints, etc.
Thank you so much, Karen and Astrid. If there are any other questions we didn't answer, I'll send them to you, and then hopefully you can respond personally. I really appreciate you coming. These tests are so important. WIOA 2 requires a pre and post CASAS test in order to earn your payment points. No sense working on your payment points unless you've done a pre and post test. So we have these new tests for you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to civic participation IELCE. We did have a question about the SIP, and Portia said she would come on and tell us a little bit about the SIP before we get into civic
Please
participation.
excuse the noise in the background. There's some construction going on here. But I had received this question earlier from one of my agencies, and Erica from Sweetwater was kind enough to send me the information. So the SIP plan, the Word document and a webinar are in the OAR website under the SIP webpage. So that's through the OTAN site. And then they want you to watch the webinar and develop a list of questions because there'll be a live Q&A on February 6th. And I think you sign up for that on the professional development CalAdultEdTraining.org. And the SIP will be due on April 30th.
And so, Portia, if you send me that information, I'll put it in the notes for this meeting so that everybody will have those dates and everything. I'd appreciate it.
I will do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So let's move ahead. I had some things I wanted to talk about today, and that was I wanted to review our process for COAP assessment development. There have been a lot of questions about this, so I thought I would talk a little bit about it at today's meeting. And I've also developed an FAQ, which I'm going to direct you to after this. But just as a review, for those of you who I'm sure are WIOA Title II funded agencies, that you are responsible for writing COAP assessments based on the pre-approved civic objective and additional assessment plan, which is our COAP. The P in COAP stands for plan. So what you download on the website is a plan, and then you are charged with writing an assessment. Or if you look at the asterisk at the bottom, that you may borrow it from another agency. But I've given you some sort of rules for borrowing that you check it out yourself. Just because another agency is using it doesn't mean it meets all the requirements, and you should be careful if you're going to use it. And that you keep it secure and not use it for practice lessons, that you use it as you would any test of yours, secure, because these are used for payment points, remember? And that if you are using it, that you credit the agency from which you borrowed. And I want to remind you also that COAP assessment is performance-based. So this is a definition here of performance-based assessment. It measures the student's ability to apply skills and knowledge learned from a unit or units of study. It's not a paper and pencil test, 20 questions. It's doing something that we would do in real life. And remember that it needs to challenge students to use their higher order thinking skills to create a product or complete a process. That's Chun's definition of it. And we use that because this is different from the CASAS test. We are lucky in this state to have both things, both a standardized test and a performance-based test to measure our students' progress. So remember that co-op assessments must be challenging to the student at their English proficiency level, and all of the co-ops show you a plan for what needs to be done. Again, you're responsible to do it, so you need to make sure that it is challenging for each of the students at their level. We're not giving an advanced student a beginning level test. Remember that your test should require students to use their critical thinking skills and discernment. So correct responses must be distinct and differentiated. And so you can't have a policy that any answer they give is correct. It needs to be something that they have to discern and choose the correct answer. Remember that they need to directly relate to the co-op, the plan, and that they follow the tasks, rubrics, and rating scales of the co-op that your agency selected. They assess how well the learner can interact or access the community, because it's all about accessing the community. So the tasks should be what the student performs in real life, such as talking with a doctor or completing an insurance claim, and that it relates to the topic and instruction type. So if you're teaching orally, your test should be oral. If you're teaching, or I should say, if you're going to test orally, then all your teaching should be oral. Of course, other skills can be included, but the focus would be oral. Same with written. And also want to mention that students can bring with them to the assessment anything that they would be using in real life. So a calculator, for example, is something someone might use in real life. And so that could be used depending on what the assessment was. Very often I bring to a job application situation my resume so I can remember the dates of my employment. So that would be something that could be brought to either a job interview or to fill out the job application. So whatever any of us would use in real life is what the students are able to use. So for example, though, we don't bring a dialogue in real life to a communication with someone. So that would not be an acceptable thing, that they have a printed dialogue of what they are doing in a role play. I hope that makes sense. And this is reiterated again in the FAQ. Just to remind you that co-op assessments are evaluated on an individual basis. You cannot have any student-to-student interaction. It must be student assessor, because each student is evaluated individually on all written, role play, all of the things. And remember that we administer the test after 30 hours of instruction. This is not seat time, but we do expect that your students would have had enough seat time that they have the information needed to pass the assessment. You don't want to have students take an assessment that you don't expect them to pass. Now, they may or may not pass, but they should have enough information that you would expect them to pass. And remember that the test can be administered again if they don't pass. Talking about passage rates, we expect that you develop a test for which 80 to 85% of your students who participated in the instruction, or the main part of the instruction, will pass it. If more than 85% pass, perhaps your test is too easy. So we'd like you to look at that and remember the requirement that the test be challenging. If fewer than 80% pass, perhaps it's too difficult, so you might want to redesign it for that reason, okay? And so it's your responsibility to develop a co-op that's challenging to every student at every level, not too easy and not too difficult. In terms of your data, all the assessment scores, pass or fail, should be reported to TOPS Pro. So some of you have said that you don't submit the fails, and that's going to skew your data and make it look like all of your students pass, which looks like your tests are too easy. So you don't want that. you want to put in anybody who completes all the tasks should be put into this TE system, pass or fail. Then there are places in TE that allow you to show a second test record, at whether that be pass or fail, and a third, etc. Okay, I've given you some resources here. Again, as always, this California Civic Participation page has everything you need. There's some webinars about what the requirements are and how to develop COAPs assessments. These two webinars have information on it. You might want to scroll through. There is a document, COAP information, and again, our FAQ is always there. You will see the new FAQ E9. It's in green because it's new from July 1. And I may be updating it too with some extra information, but right now that's what's there. Any questions about assessment? Let me see.
Hey, Lori, can I say something about the FAQ document?
Sure.
So I refer to that FAQ document all the time. EL Civics can be, and just WIOLA in general, are really, there's a lot of detail to them, and it's really hard to always remember everything. And there are there's so much good information in those FAQs just as a reference. I just printed it out and put it next to my desk, and I do the same for citizenship, even though that's what I work with all the time. And I find both of them really helpful, and I think you might as well.
Thank you, Portia. And remember, they're updated every year as things come up. But if you can take a look at them on July 1, and then anything that's new will be in green. So if you've already looked at them this year, just look at the green things, and that will tell you what could be new. And I may be just doing a whole document for assessment. I don't know, because there's a lot of information, and perhaps it's too much just to be in the FAQs, but I'll keep you posted on that. Any questions? Oops. Okay, some more information. Oh, this is the FAQ. I'm not going to read it to you, but I just printed it here so you can see it without going to the document. And someone else asked me this month about data collection. And so I just wanted to remind you, again, I'm not going to read it to you, but that FAQ A7 talks about keeping data for how many years. And I want you to remember about that. Everybody always asks about it. So I put this here for you, again, for you to read at your leisure. Okay, and now it is my pleasure to introduce Stephanie Iseri Fitzpatrick, who's our new program specialist, who's going to work with Portia and I on EL Civics special projects. And Stephanie said she might say a few words. So Stephanie, are you there?
Yes, Lori, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I just want to say hello to everyone, and I'm very excited about working with CASAS and hopefully adding to the EL Civics Exchange materials so that there's something in every topic. So.
Thank you. And Stephanie came to us from Torrance Adult School. She's now living in San Diego. So the perfect place to be an employee of CASAS. So we're thrilled to have her. Besides all of her expertise, she also is in San Diego. And as she said, her first project is to help us with the EL Civics Exchange. As you know, this is the exchange, and here is the link. And what Stephanie was referring to, and I hope I didn't interrupt you, Stephanie, is that we have 0 items here. And let's see where else, and in transition too. So we're hoping to get rid of these zeros. So that's one of the reasons we wanted Stephanie to join us. And so we are working on getting this one, especially 1.7 is where Stephanie's starting. It was developed by Maren Anton, and we know how difficult it is to get things ready to be posted on the EL Civics Exchange. So Stephanie is working on that. And then we also want to put up 28.2 and work a little bit on the beginning low of that and have that ready for you. And we'll let you know when those come out, but we're going to at least get rid of one of those zeros very soon, we hope, so that we have these great materials in banking 1.7. Anything else, Stephanie? Okay, good. We're thrilled to have you. So I also want to mention that the upcoming webinar next week, Planning and Implementing an Effective IELCE IET Program webinar. I'm so excited because I already have over 100 people signed up. So I'll see you next Tuesday. Please register at caadultedtraining.org. And it's for administrators, coordinators, ESL and CTE teachers who are participating in planning, developing, and implementing IELCE. We thought to do it for those of you who are new to IELCE 243 funding this year. I hope you are coming because you are the main audience we wanted. But of course, anybody who is either new to it or continuing and just wants a review, it's going to be more of an overview of what needs to be there, but we hope we'll do some specific things too. And one of the things we're going to look at is AIR's quality indicators. So AIR has our CalPro, our parent to our CalPro here in California, has developed these IET quality indicators. And one of the things we're going to do together is to select one of these IET quality indicators in which you think your program needs improvement or has not yet implemented. For those of you who are new, that may be everything, but for those of you who are continuing, you may have one or two or more areas. And we want you to think about what your plan for implementation or improvement is for the next year. And I just want to show you that I want to show you that document real quick. Let me go to a new share. There it is. So this is the document. I've given you the link here, and I'm going to send you these slides. This is the document, and as you can see, it's a chart. And the first one says, meets local labor market needs as evidenced by labor market information, research, and employer validation. It's one of the things that we've talked about as part of our system here in California. And so we would like you to think about, are you implementing that? Are you doing that? Do you need improvement in that area, or do you need to implement that area? So that's what we're going to have you look at. And those of you who can't participate or don't wish to participate, go ahead and look at this document, and you can work on that on your own without coming to the workshop. But that's one of the things we're going to be doing next week. I also want to let all of you 243 funded programs know that as every year, the IELCE report for 243 programs is due on April 30th. I want you to start thinking about it now because you don't want to wait to the last minute. Just to let you know, there will be some minor revisions to the report language. And there may be a few of the quality indicators added, but basically it will be the same. CDE wanted to focus a little bit more on planning. They didn't feel that you all were talking about planning as much as you might. So rather than make that part 2 section optional, they want to require it for everyone. So we were looking at part 2, and these ideas of continuous improvement with the quality indicators is something that should be part of your planning every year. It was already part of question 5 last year, and we want to emphasize that this year. So you can review last year's summary of content here. I have this link for you here. And so the majority of it will be exactly the same. The questions just might be worded slightly differently or have a few different emphases. So we'd love you to begin writing the needed information now. Look at the summary of content, begin writing or collecting the information so that you'll be ready before the deadline to transfer that information into the electronic report. And I just wanted to point out again, I'm not going to read this, but there is the U.S. Department of Education has developed this new project for IET also. And so you might want to go to this link to get information and curricula about IET. There's something called Promising Practices for Integrated Education and Training for beginning level learners. And you might want to look into that too, to inform what you're doing at your agencies. Let me see if there are any questions for me before I pass this along to Portia. Okay. I think there are no questions for me, so I'm going to pass it along to Portia to talk a little bit about citizenship preparation.
Thank you, Lori. We've been talking about this for a while. Citizenship, there is one part of We Owe It To. Under 231, you can participate in citizenship preparation. There are 2 payment points available for that outside of the other co-ops. There is one for the citizenship interview test and one for the government history. If you want to offer the CIT, it's appropriate for students who are applying for citizenship. It's based on the N400 application. And however, if you want to offer it, you have to be certified, or you have to have one certified staff member. And you can order the training through the CASAS website. The original certification takes about 4 to 6 hours. And then you need to recertify annually, and that takes about 2 hours. The certification course is open from July 1st through April 30th, and recertification is open from January to April 30th. And if you needed to recertify, you should have received an email from CASAS, and many of you are in that process now. The course is free to We Owe It To agencies. And if you're a little bit confused about how to do that order, there's a little video on the Civics citizenship YouTube channel, or you can contact sit@casas.org to assist you with that. The payment points are great. You know, the government history listening test is of interest to any student who's living in the United States. And you can split a class so that you're covering citizenship preparation and civic participation in the same class. That's in the FAQs, both for EL Civics and for citizenship. So I hope you'll consider offering that test to your students. And if you have questions about how to do that, just email sit@casas.org and I'll be in touch, or you can email me directly.
Thank you so much, Portia. All in one slide. Yay.
All in one slide.
Wonderful. So some other information for you. I've set on the dates for the spring, and I've submitted all of them into core, so you can register for them now. These are our dates. In the February meeting, I will be talking about the IELCE report again, and then I usually do a how to complete the IELCE report. I can't do it until the form is updated, so I'm not sure when that will be, but I will let you know, and everything will be recorded, so you can always go back to it if you can't attend. Please, if you haven't already, type your name and agency into the chat box, and after the meeting, or actually now, until 2:30, you could register, and I'd really appreciate it if you would do that. I'm going to send you the slides. Everybody who's on my email list, I'm going to send you the slides. I'm going to send you notes. I'm going to send you links from this meeting. So if you're not on my email list, and you would know that if you got a reminder for me on Monday evening. If you got a reminder, you're on my list. If you didn't get a reminder, then please email me at lbhoward@casas.org or elcivics@casas.org. Oh, don't want to forget to tell you that registration is open for the CASAS National Summer Institute. Since this is a little picture, I gave you the link right here to go and see where to register and get all the information about it. It happens to be June 17th through 20th this year, again at the Hyatt Regency Orange County, which is a location we all like very much. Any questions? And so I see that some of you had trouble downloading the slides from, I assume, from Karen and Astrid. I'll make sure I give you the correct link when I send you the notes today or early tomorrow. And I will be sending you my slides as well. So any of your questions there, I'll check all the questions in the chat to make sure we've answered everything, or I've sent the messages along. So I hope you can just wait a little bit of that. Oh, and Sarah says there are already some types of rooms unavailable, so get reservation. I assume you mean hotel rooms, but also this is for the conference. Also, space is limited for in-person labs, so I would suggest you do that right away as well. Maybe that's what Sarah was telling us. Okay, we've come to the end. Again, our next meeting is February 28th. We thank you so much for attending, and we wish you very good weather and lovely holidays. Valentine's Day, President's Day are coming up, so hopefully you'll have some enjoyment then, and we'll see you on February 28th. Thank you so much for attending today.